So here is the water separator on my 23 450, and a lot of times, talking to a lot of different technicians and everything, it's been recommended to drain this thing once a month. In my experience, I've drained it once a month, and I've never seen water in any of the fuel that I've gotten. I've never had that problem. Now, I did check the manual from Ford for the official recommendations from Ford Motor Company. And looking in the manual, I didn't see anything that said you had to drain this every month as any type of precaution or anything. The only thing the manual said was to drain it if your light turned on, your water in the fuel light turned on. So, talking to different technicians that I know, they've told me that a lot of times, if you actually get to so much water in the fuel that the light turned on, it could be too late already. So, if you're driving along and your light turns on for water in the fuel, then this is how you drain the system. And I think if you actually get that warning light, then it's probably a good idea to pull over right away and drain the system. Now, definitely refer to your owner's manual too, because they explain everything about this. Number one, do not do this with the engine running. It's very clear in the owner's manual that you could cause some serious damage if you crack your drain valve while the engine's running. Uh, I've seen these engines have air leaks on these filter housings, and when those air leaks were present, it caused air to be drawn into the system. So, definitely don't want to be opening the drain valve while the motor's running. But according to Ford, you only need to do this when the light turns on. And according to technicians that I've talked to, if you see that light, freaking stop and figure out what's going on. Maybe you got some contaminated fuel or something, and maybe just the water will settle and drain out. So let's go ahead and drain it just to show how it would look, how it's done, and if you want to pretty much take a sample of your fuel just to see. Maybe you're just curious, or maybe you are actually in a situation where you have the light turn on. So number one, just turn it like that, no tools, and drain it. Now it's splashing all over the place. It's messy. According to the manual, let me grab my jar here. So, I kind of forgot about this detail, but if you're gonna put a container on the ground and drain it, it's gonna freaking splash everywhere. But you could get a clear container so that you could really separate it out and take a real good look at your fuel quality and what's going on. That's what we're doing here. But it's a bit messy. Maybe a 5-gallon bucket would be better because it would have taller sides. But this is just what I had on hand, so a bit messy. So now that we've done that, we're going to close this back up. Being careful not to break it. If you don't want to force it, like as you just saw me turning it didn't want to turn. So like when it's down, you want to just, you shouldn't have to fight it. So you turn it, it shuts, you hear that little bit of a click. You don't want to break this thing. Be careful as it is loose and it's hanging, and you go to tighten it up, it's got a little detent in it, so it doesn't want to tighten up. You got to push up on it ever so slightly so that it will not be broken. And I need to clean all this fuel off the camera. 1 second. Now that the fuel has been drained, this part is very important. Before you start the vehicle, you have to prime the system. These trucks are equipped with a CP4 pump, and if you've done any research on these trucks, you know that the CP4 pumps on these trucks are very fragile And if you ever have any issues with your CP4 pump, then you will be coming out of a lot of money, because when the CP4 pumps fail, they take out a ton of components, oftentimes equating to a $15,000 repair. That being said, when you drain the water separator, you don't want to start the vehicle without priming the system with fuel, because then you could potentially have the high pressure fuel pump, the high pressure CP4 fuel pump sucking air, not being lubricated, running without proper lubrication, and potentially causing some damage to the pump, some unnecessary wear and tear to the pump. So how do you prime this system? It's important that you do it correctly. When you prime the fuel pump on this truck, you have to cycle the key without starting the engine. This truck has a push button start, so we just do that. I'm gonna turn the radio off. Now, when you do that, you can hear the system is pumping. Now, let's get up under here and listen. And I can hear it pumping. Hopefully you can hear that. This is where most people make the mistake, though. If you notice, this thing's going to pump for at least 30 seconds, and then it just stopped. From here, we go back up top, and we do it again. Turn it off, and we turn it back on. And we let the system pump until it's ready to stop. And you can hear it. It's pretty loud. You just got to turn off the radio and stuff, and you can hear that fuel pump going. And I say this is where a lot of people make a mistake, because what they end up doing, instead of letting the system just pump, still pumping now, they sit there and cycle the key over and over and over, failing to realize that when you cycle the key, the pump will continue until it's ready to stop. It doesn't only prime for 10 seconds or 12 seconds, 15 seconds. You want to let the system prime the fuel until it's ready to stop, until you cycle it again. Now, according to the manual, I believe they said do this twice. 3 times, though, wouldn't hurt. So we're going to do it 3 times, and then we're going to start the truck. Turning it off and back on. No key detected. So let me try that again. There, detected the key. Now, as I do this here on the 3rd time, I can still hear the air. It's not as if, there's no sound of the air kind of squeak, kind of a sound like air squirting by something. It will continue to sound airy like that until the truck runs. So after 2 or 3 times, if you're just draining the system, then 2 or 3 times should be enough, and the truck should start right up. Let's go ahead and fire this truck up. Now see if there's any long cranks or anything. It's fired right up. Ever so slightly longer of a crank though, but I probably could have primed it one more time and it would have fired up easier. And yeah, 3 times, 4 times, even 5 times is okay. Within reason, don't drain the batteries, obviously, trying to prime the system, but the system is actually still working out some air even though it's running. I can still hear the sound of air, but it's enough to where the CP4 pump isn't run dry. So as far as draining this out once a month, is it actually required to? I do not believe it is required to be drained once a month. I didn't see that in the manual, but it's not a bad idea to check your fuel quality, drain it once a month. I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't always get to this once a month. This is honestly the first time I'm doing this, and I've had this truck I think for 2 months, and In doing so, I've only ever seen pretty clean fuel samples anyway. But I guess it'd be a good warning that if you were getting some weird stuff, uh, maybe it's a good time to switch fuel stations. If for some reason, you want to just keep an eye on your fuel quality, maybe it's a good move to be draining your water separator. But my goal with the channel is to tell you guys, as best of my ability, the right way to do some of this stuff. And a lot of times it's going to be contradictory to what we want it to be. So once a month isn't a bad practice at all. I don't always get there. It's not a big deal. If I don't get to it once a month, I don't need to worry that much about it. But as the truck's now been running, I can hear that the air's out of the system now. You can hear it kind of squirting around. If batteries and stuff like that are no issue, more primes, the better. But it really works the air out too once it starts up and runs. And maybe it's just me. It's hard to really say for sure, but it does seem like the fuel pump cycles for shorter and shorter periods of time as the pressure builds up. I don't know if there's some kind of a pressure sensor and it knows that it needs to build more pressure so it'll cycle longer. But the number one mistake that I've seen is guys will cycle the key maybe 20 times, failing to realize that out of the 20 times they didn't let the key stay running long enough to let the pump go through its full cycle. So when you cycle the key, let the pump until it's done. 3 times, 2 times. The manual says for the draining of the fuel filter to do it twice. I think, just from our experience today, minimum 3, but maybe even more, just because the crank was ever so slightly longer on this startup after 3. Fuel filters, same priming procedure, just most certainly more primes. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to show you guys this. I know it's a controversial topic, priming your fuel pump, and I know a lot of people need to be brought up to speed a little bit on that full deal. But anyway, guys, my name is Sean. This is DS Trucks. This is our 23450. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Over and out.